Do you have a hiatal hernia? Or do you even know what it is? Let's start with what is a hiatal hernia. Let's make sure you understand it in the context of heartburn, because if you're watching this video, you very likely have heartburn, and it's possible that you have a hiatal hernia. And if that is the case, then we have to make sure that that gets addressed properly. So what is a hiatal hernia? Essentially, this is your esophagus. This is the tube by which your food travels down. You have surrounding that is this long kind of flat trampoline going across your midsection, your torso. It's called the diaphragm. And when you breathe in, or when your diaphragm contracts, when it relaxes, it goes down like this, and it pulls the lungs open and pulls in air. As you breathe out, the diaphragm contracts and moves up, squeezing the air out, and you exhale, okay? But in between there, this tube is your esophagus, and this is your diaphragm. And as you breathe in, that diaphragm moves down, and as you breathe out, it moves up. It's constantly sliding along the esophagus, right? What's interesting is just below that diaphragm, the esophagus drops into the stomach, okay? And that's what I'm drawing here. The stomach then sits just below this, down here, okay? This is the stomach. And this ring around the esophagus is called the esophageal sphincter. And not that that's important, but just bear with me here for a moment. If you have irritation to the stomach, could be heartburn, could be trauma, could be poor diet, could be too much alcohol, could be too much stress, you can have the stomach push up and put pressure up against that diaphragm. And if this happens in a very blunt way, like a trauma, a car accident, hitting the stomach, pushes the stomach up, it can rip through this hole. So think of it like this, your stomach can literally rip through this hole. The stomach can push up and through here, okay? And when the stomach pushes up through that hole, and now you've got this little finger sticking up, right? This is your diaphragm, this is your esophagus, and as the diaphragm moves down, the stomach has ripped up through that diaphragm next to your esophagus. That's not good. The stomach should be down here, sitting like the ball that it is, or the bag, essentially, that it is. And so now, you literally have parts of your stomach above the diaphragm producing acids, that those acids are literally just falling right here into the esophageal wall. Like literally the bottom of your esophagus is not supposed to have acids there. The acids are supposed to stay down here in the stomach. Now that torn piece of that stomach portion that's sticking up is just pushing right into the esophagus, the acids that are needed to be released to help the food you just ate. So you're literally creating damage into the esophagus every time that you eat foods that require acids, which is pretty much all the time. That's a hiatal hernia. And like I said, there's multiple ways for that to happen, but the problem is you can have heartburn due to this hiatal hernia. So this is a big deal. If you have not been tested for this, if you have not actually looked at this from a doctor perspective, this needs to get done. So in this case, especially for somebody who has this done or has this problem, you want to make sure that you try and treat it as naturally as possible. And so we talk about that when we work with our heartburn patients if they have hiatal hernia. So in the link to the description to this video, you should take advantage of a free call where you can just ask us questions about hiatal hernia and any questions you may have about that, because we see a lot of patients with this and help them to avoid surgery, or at least address this as naturally as possible, so they're not getting problems with this. The problem becomes the long-term issue. When the esophagus is damaged, you get this thing called Barrett's esophagus. And that's just a name for a doctor who figured out that when you have acids pouring into the bottom of the esophagus, that changes the health of those cells, and that bottom of that tube becomes very scarred up and damaged and stiff. That's called Barrett's esophagus, and that is a precancerous condition. It's very serious. We don't want that to happen. So take advantage of that call. Let's find out what's going on with you, get your questions answered. And this might be a big deal for you that you don't even realize that this is going on. Let's make sure we get that addressed, all right? Take advantage of this free call.